You won't believe this story unless you follow it to the very end, because it begins with a simple message carved into a wooden post on a deserted American island. One that has confused historians, misled presidents, and sparked more than 400 years of conspiracy theories. The word was just 8 letters long, CROATOAN, and it remains the most mystifying clue in the oldest unsolved disappearance in United States history. In 1587, decades before Jamestown or Plymouth, over 100 English settlers set sail across the Atlantic, dreaming of building the first permanent English colony in the New World. Their leader, John White, a skilled mapmaker and artist, guided them to Roanoke Island, located off the coast of what is now North Carolina. These settlers weren't criminals or soldiers, they were families, craftsmen, ordinary men and women who wanted a fresh beginning. Among them was White's daughter, Eleanor Dare, who would soon give birth to the first English child born in America, Virginia Dare. Life on Roanoke was harsh from the start. The colonists faced hunger, storms, disease, and tense relations with surrounding native tribes. Supplies were running low, and their situation grew desperate. After only a few months, the settlers begged John White to return to England for supplies. He agreed, leaving behind his daughter, his newly born granddaughter, and 115 settlers he promised to rescue. It was meant to be a short journey, but fate intervened in a way no one could have predicted. When White arrived in England in late 1587, a massive war was erupting between England and Spain. Queen Elizabeth I demanded every ship be used to defend the country against the Spanish Armada. No captain was allowed to sail to America. White spent 3 painful years begging, pleading, and fighting for permission to return to Roanoke. He had no idea what was happening to the colony he had left behind. No food, no protection, no reinforcements, just silence and fear growing with each passing day. Finally, in 1590, John White stepped onto Roanoke Island once again. But what he found was not his daughter rushing to greet him, or the sound of children playing. The entire colony had vanished. Houses dismantled, tools gone, no bodies, no signs of violence. Everything erased as if the people had walked away into thin air. The only clue was carved into a post of the abandoned fort, CROATOAN. White immediately believed this meant the settlers had moved to CROATOAN Island, home of a friendly tribe they had known. But before he could search, a violent storm forced his ship back to sea. He never returned to America again. For centuries, historians, archaeologists, and scientists have tried to uncover what happened to America's lost colony. Every theory you can imagine has been explored. Some believe the settlers peacefully merged with native tribes, disappearing into their culture. Others argue they were killed by hostile groups. Some think they built small boats and attempted to sail back to England, only to drown at sea. And a few insist something darker and stranger happened, something that left no trace except that eerie carved word. Even the U.S. government and multiple presidents have taken interest. Theodore Roosevelt wrote about the colony in his historical works. Researchers funded by the Smithsonian have spent decades digging for clues. In the 1930s, a series of carved stones were discovered across the southeast, claiming to be written by Eleanor Dare herself. Some were later declared hoaxes, but others remained suspiciously convincing. One stone describes starvation, sickness, and the death of Virginia Dare. Another claimed the survivors traveled hundreds of miles inland. Whether real or fake, these stones added fuel to a mystery that refuses to die. More recently, advanced technology has opened new possibilities. In the early 2000s, archaeologists discovered hidden markings on a centuries-old map drawn by John White himself. Beneath a patch glued onto the map was a symbol, possibly indicating a secret fort where the colonists might have moved to. Later excavations found pottery and tools that didn't match local native tribes, but did match European designs. Another team found European trade beads buried miles inland, suggesting that at least some settlers left Roanoke and integrated with native communities. But none of this has been enough to solve the puzzle definitively. DNA researchers have even tried comparing genetic data from modern families in North Carolina with known descendants of early English settlers. Some results hinted at unexpected European ancestry mixed with Native American bloodlines. But the evidence remains thin, incomplete, and controversial. In one of the strangest twists, the location of Croatoan Island itself changed over time. The island the settlers might have fled to, now called Hatteras, has been reshaped drastically by storms, hurricanes, and centuries of erosion. Entire sections of land have vanished underwater. If the colonists built a village there, nature may have erased every physical trace. The mystery has grown so large that it has become part of American folklore. Writers, filmmakers, and ghost hunters created stories about hauntings and curses. Some Americans still believe the word CROATOAN carries a supernatural meaning. The same word has appeared in strange fictional stories throughout history, from Edgar Allan Poe to modern TV shows, always linked with unexplained disappearances. It's as if the lost colony became a symbol of something deeper, the fear of being forgotten, swallowed by a vast new world. Yet the real truth might be simpler and more human. Imagine the settlers after John White left, running out of food, surrounded by foreign forests, uncertain of who to trust. Some might have died from disease, others might have followed native guides inland, some might have married into tribes raising families far from the island. If this happened, the lost colony didn't really vanish. They transformed into something new, absorbed into cultures that welcomed them. In 2015, archaeologists uncovered evidence at a place called Site X, inland from Roanoke, that strongly supports this theory. Fragments of pottery, European tools, and unusual artifacts suggested that a small group of settlers lived there for years. Another team on Hatteras Island found a mix of English and native items together, reinforcing the idea that the colonists didn't disappear. They blended into the world around them. But because no written records survived, their stories faded. The American landscape has always held mysteries, but none so persistent and haunting as the fate of the first English families to call America their home. They arrived with hope. They vanished with silence. Their legacy is scattered across maps, buried artifacts, half-decoded clues, and the imagination of anyone who hears their story. What remains undeniable is that they shaped history in ways they could never have understood. They were the first chapter in the long, complicated story of English America, a chapter still unfinished. And so the carved word Croatoan continues to whisper across centuries, daring each generation to solve a mystery older than the nation itself.